Hi, my name is Dylan Hong, and this is my $1,000 gaming PC build. If you were to purchase exactly what I did, the final cost would be around $1,200 because I got most of my parts during sales and did a lot of rebates, and I also had a friend who was able to get me a processor at a discounted price. Thanks, bud. But if you have an extremely strict budget and cannot break that $1,000 mark, I'll include ways to cut costs at the very end. I'm going to go from outside in, so to start off, I have this Raidmax case. This is the Raidmax Vortex case, which is a really nice budget mid-sized tower. I really like the blue accented design and the shark and sleep gamer look that it gives off. And also for the price, I was extremely excited by the fact that it has a window, although it is very heavily tinted, so I did have to add an LED strip to make sure those internals were visible. Up top we have a USB 3.0 port alongside a USB 2.0 port. More would have been nice, but I do forgive it for being a budget case. And right next to those there are auxiliary and microphone jacks. The build quality of the case is okay. It is a bunch of cheap plastic that I could see breaking if not handled well, but for the price I am absolutely satisfied. So now let's open up this case and take a look inside. Remember, I did add an aftermarket LED strip, which is why it has that blue light tint. So immediately what we can see stands out the most is this wonderful Nvidia GeForce GTX 1070 Founders Edition manufactured by EVGA. So far, I've been able to play all of the games I've wanted at max or ultra settings with hitting at least 60 frames per second. And games like Counter-Strike and Portal, which run on less intensive systems like Source, are able to hit that 300 max FPS range that they set, which I know you can remove that max, but it's just nice to know that it hits it. Although for some reason in CSGO, I do occasionally get some frame drops that are lower than my friends with lower grade CPUs and GPUs, which is kind of questionable. For now, I'm gonna say that this reason is because of the lack of optimization in the Source engine for higher end GPUs that have just come out with this new Pascal architecture. Speaking of that new Pascal architecture, benchmarks and other media outlets have shown that this 1070 paired with a good CPU is perfectly capable of running virtual reality. The Pascal architecture really aids in efficient simultaneous multi-projection technology. This really helps you out with a multiple monitor setup as well as virtual reality. The $450 graphics card is extremely impressive for the price. It can turn any modest build into a full 1080p ultra gaming station and can hit some 4K too. And it can also turn any good build into a virtual reality machine. This surpasses the graphical capabilities of last year's Titan X, which launched at $1,000. Really quickly, I do have 16 gigs of RAM with two individual 8GB DDR4 sticks. RAM nowadays is pretty standardized, so you pretty much can't go wrong as long as it fits in your motherboard. For the CPU, I have the Intel i7-6700 Skylake processor. It's a quad-core processor with a default clock speed of 3.4 GHz and can turbo boost up to 4.0 GHz. This is not the K version of the model, which means this processor is not overclockable. Because of this, I've stuck with the default CPU fan cooler that comes with the processor, and I've been extremely happy and pleased with the processor speed. For the motherboard, I went with the gaming M3 B150 motherboard from MSI. Once again, this is not overclockable, but I've been extremely pleased with the performance from this PC, so I haven't really felt a need. It's a pretty standard motherboard with USB 3.1, PCI Express, and plenty of SATA ports for expandability. It also supports built-in 7.1 channel high-definition audio. The motherboard only supports up to 2133 MHz RAM, so the 2400 MHz RAM that I got before is downgraded. Basically, the highest clock speed RAM in this motherboard will just run at that slower speed, but in gaming, the clock speed of the RAM has little to no impact. The case has a built-in fan in the back, which is nice, but I've also added in Corsair fans in the front and top. I haven't had any issues with overheating, mostly because of how energy efficient the i7 and the 1070 are. For storage, we're looking at a 1TB solid-state hybrid drive. I've really liked this drive because it combines the high storage capacity of a hard drive along with the speed of the SSD. You really notice this with the quick boot up speed, as well as the fact that the applications you use the most launch really quickly, and everything else that you don't use too frequently loads in the standard time of a hard drive. One weird thing about this case is that there are no included hard drive mounts, which means I had to directly mount my hard drive into the frame of the case. It's a little bit unorthodox, but it works. Finally, to power all of this up, I went with a 500 watt EVGA power supply. Again, because of how power efficient my CPU and GPU are, I was able to go with a lower wattage power supply. Also, I'm not doing any overclocking with this machine, so this makes this a very affordable power supply to power a very powerful power gaming PC. Overall, I'm very happy with the performance from this gaming PC. It scored this score on the Firestrike 3D Mark benchmarking test, which is approximately better than 90% of all tests. And being at the top 10% with a build of this price is pretty impressive in my book. I made the Amazon list that I used to purchase the parts for this PC public, and I'll have that link in the description down below. If you were to purchase everything in the link in the description, you would have my exact gaming PC build. And for those of you who are looking to shave off a few $100s to make sure that it's below that $1,000 mark, I've got a few suggestions to save some cash. First of all, you can save about $100 by getting an i5 processor instead of an i7 processor. i7s aren't really necessary for gaming. The reason I got one is because of, first of all, the discounted price, thanks again bud, and second of all, I was planning on doing some 3D modeling, video editing, and streaming on this PC. Next, you can save around $200 if you're willing to downgrade the GPU to an AMD RX 480. The 480 was very recently released and has a huge amount of power for the price. You should still be able to run a lot of games at max settings at 1080p with the RX 480. It should also be able to run some VR too, just not as smoothly as the Nvidia cards. Also, the Nvidia 1060 was just released, coming in at around $300. It'll still save you some cash and should be more powerful than the 480. And you can decrease your storage option to 500 gigabytes if that makes sense for you, and the phone just rang. Also, you could decrease the amount of RAM you get from 16 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, that'll save you around $30, and you can decrease your storage option from 1 terabyte to 500 gigabytes if that makes sense for you. Using the last few tips, you could save anywhere from $100 to $350, and it's all up to you. That's the great thing about building your own PC. You can customize it in any way you like. This is just a framework or a starting point for you guys. Lastly, I'm gonna let you guys name this PC, so put down in the comments your name suggestions, and I will officially name my PC the most thumbs-upped name. Please, nothing vulgar. And if any of you do end up building this PC with the Amazon links down below, be sure to let me know and I will give you a shout out in one of my videos. This has been Dylan Hong Tech, and this is my gaming PC build. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below related to this or not, and thank you for watching.